You can walk through life timid, uncertain, waiting to be chosen, or you can step into the world already convinced that success is yours. That decision alone separates the leaders from the followers, the rich from the poor, the fulfilled from the frustrated. In this video, I will show you how to live from the inside out to act today with the certainty of a man who has already succeeded. You will learn why thought and action cannot be separated, how your attitude sets the limit of your rewards, and how acting as if success is already yours draws opportunity to you like iron to a magnet. If you felt stuck, waiting for your turn, this message will show you why waiting is the surest way to fail, and how the discipline of thought and conduct can transform your days into steps toward your worthy ideal. Most people are taught to hold back, to wait for the evidence before believing, to wait for recognition before they stand tall. But success never works that way. Success belongs to the man who dares to believe before there is evidence, who acts before the applause, who walks and talks as if his vision were already accomplished. Think about it. Every invention, every fortune, every achievement was once invisible, existing only in the mind of a man who treated it as real. This is why conformity is the enemy of greatness. Conformity waits. Faith acts. And as surely as the farmer who plants in spring will harvest in autumn, the man who sows belief in action will reap the rewards in due season. Across the next 80 minutes, I'm going to take you deep into this principle. We will explore why acting as if success is yours changes the way your mind works, how it alters your environment, and how it transforms the opportunities that come your way. I will show you the difference between the 95% who conform and the 5% who succeed. You'll learn practical ways to live this truth every day, no matter your circumstances. And before we finish, I'll give you a challenge, a test that will prove to you that life always responds to belief backed by action. Stay with me, because if you grasp this truth and live it, your future will be as certain as the sunrise. Now here's something most people completely miss. They look around at life, they see the way everyone else is living, and they assume that must be the way to do it. They fall into line, they follow the crowd, and they wonder why they end up with the same results as everyone else. But let me share with you a truth that stopped me cold the first time I really thought about it. If you take 100 men at the age of 25, all full of hope, all convinced they'll succeed, and you follow them until they reach 65, do you know what happens? By the end of that 40-year stretch, 1 will be rich, 4 will be financially independent, 5 will still be working, and 54 will be broke, dependent on others for their needs. Out of 100 men who all started even, only 5 will make the grade. That's a staggering fact, and it ought to make us sit up straight. Why does this happen? Why do so many fail when they began with the same excitement, the same sparkle in their eye, the same belief that they'd be successful? The answer is both simple and devastating. They conform. They act like everyone else without asking if everyone else knows what they're doing. They wait for proof before they believe. They look for conditions to change before they take action. They get caught in the great trap of waiting. And life has a cruel way of rewarding the man who waits. It pays him nothing. Think of it this way. Picture a ship leaving harbor. If that ship has a captain at the helm, a charted course, and a definite destination, you know where it's going. 9,999 times out of 10,000 it will get there. But now imagine another ship. It looks just the same, but it has no captain, no crew, no chart, no destination. You start the engines and let it drift. What happens? It will end up nowhere. Maybe it will sink, maybe it will wash up broken on some forgotten shore, but it won't arrive anywhere worth going. That's the fate of the 95 out of 100. They're ships without captains. They drift, they conform, they hope, they wait, and at the end of 40 years they look back and wonder why nothing turned out the way they dreamed. And here's the part that really matters to you and me. If you and I are not careful, we can fall into that very same pattern. It's easy to say, I'll start when things are right, I'll move forward when I see the opportunity, I'll believe when I have the proof. But that's the sure road to joining the 95%. Because here's the truth, the conditions will never be perfect, the proof will never come first. Faith comes first, belief comes first, and action comes first. The man who insists on waiting will still be waiting when his life has slipped by. Now, you might be thinking, well, isn't it dangerous to act without proof? Isn't it reckless to move before I know? But stop and think about it. Every worthwhile thing you've ever done in your life you did before you had proof it would work. You learned to walk by believing you could, and then taking the steps. You learned to read by assuming you could and then practicing. You took your first job before you had any proof you could handle it. Proof never comes first. It follows belief and action like a shadow. So let's set the stakes plainly. Get this wrong, and you'll spend years drifting, waiting for someone to hand you the map, waiting for life to line up just right. You'll discover too late that the crowd you trusted was just as lost as you were. But get this right, and you separate yourself from 95 out of every 100 men. You step into the small company of those who know where they're going and are moving toward it every single day. That's powerful enough on its own, but combine it with what I'm about to show you next, and you'll see why the cure for waiting is decisive belief. Because if waiting is the disease, then acting as if, living today with the confidence of success, is the cure. And that's exactly what we'll uncover in the next part. Here's something that might sound almost upside down at first, but it is the very heart of success. You don't wait until you see results before you act like you belong among the successful. You act first. You believe first. You carry yourself as if the thing you seek is already yours, and only then do the results begin to appear. That might seem backwards to the man who has spent his whole life waiting for evidence before moving forward, but it is the unchanging order of life. Our thoughts come first. From those thoughts flow our attitudes. From those attitudes spring our actions, and from those actions our results emerge. If we reverse that order, if we sit around demanding results before we dare to think and believe, we will never see the harvest because we never had the courage to plant the seed. Think of the farmer. When spring comes, he doesn't sit on his porch staring at the field saying, "I'll wait until I see a crop before I sow anything. I'll wait until I see stalks of corn pushing through the ground before I put the seed in the soil." If he did, he would starve. No, he knows the law of life. He plants first. He puts the seed in the ground long before there is any evidence. He waters, he tends, he weeds, all on faith, because he knows harvest always follows planting. And sure enough, months later the field is green with growth. Now let's turn that around and see ourselves. Our thoughts are the seeds. Our attitudes are the soil. Our daily actions are the watering and the cultivation. And the results we reap in life are the harvest. Get the order wrong, and nothing happens. Get the order right, and the harvest is as certain as the sunrise. But here is the great difficulty: most men don't trust that process. They allow their minds to be filled with weeds, and weeds are just as faithful as corn. Thoughts of doubt, fear, envy, limitation, frustration, plant those, and life will return them in abundance. The soil doesn't argue, the law doesn't judge, it simply multiplies whatever you place in it. This is why I say to you, act now, believe now, think now, as if success is already yours. Because what you dwell upon, what you cultivate, what you water daily, will in time appear in your life. Now let's look at this from another angle. Every man carries an image of himself in his mind. Call it self-image, call it identity, whatever name you give it, it governs everything. If you see yourself as timid, weak, unworthy, you will act that way, and the world will treat you that way. If you see yourself as competent, strong, purposeful, you will carry yourself differently, and the world will respond in kind. Life, I've often said, is a mirror. It doesn't hand you what you plead for. It reflects back to you what you are. If you want different results, you must first present a different image to the mirror. And how do you change that image? By acting the part before the world applauds. By carrying yourself as the person you intend to become, not the one you've been. By believing now, before the evidence, that you are moving toward your worthy ideal. Let me make this practical. Suppose a man decides he wants to be a writer. He says, "One day, if my work is published, if people pay me, then I'll consider myself a writer." That man will never write. But another man says, "I am a writer. I may be an unpublished one today, but a writer writes, so I will sit down and do the work. That man, acting as if his success were already his, will in time gather the harvest of his labor. Or consider the salesman. One man says, if the market is good, if customers are friendly, then I'll sell with confidence. He will be whipped by every turn of the wind. But another says, I am a successful salesman. My job is to serve people, to bring them what they need, and I will carry myself with confidence regardless of the market. That man will find doors opening, because people are drawn to belief. So the question comes to you and me. Do we wait or do we plant? Do we drift with the 95% or do we set our course with the few? The man who waits says, when I feel like it, then I'll act. The man who succeeds says, I will act and the feelings will follow. The man who waits says, when I see results, I'll believe. The man who succeeds says, I believe and results will follow. This is the dividing line between the mass of men who fail and the handful who succeed, and I know what some may be thinking. Isn't this just pretending? Isn't it dishonest to act like something is mine before it is? But no, it isn't pretending, and it isn't dishonest. It is simply obeying the law of cause and effect. Remember, you don't pretend the seed will grow when you plant it. You know it will. You don't pretend the sun will rise tomorrow when you go to bed. You know it will. In the same way, you don't pretend when you act as if success is yours. You are aligning yourself with the law that says, we become what we think about. That's no more pretending than gravity is pretending when you drop a stone. It's simply the way life works. So I challenge you to begin today. Stop waiting for proof. Stop demanding evidence before you believe. Begin to walk, talk, work, think, and live as the man or woman you intend to be. See yourself already in possession of your worthy ideal, and then act from that position. And as surely as spring follows winter, the harvest will appear. Now this naturally raises the question, act as if, but act toward what? If belief and action are the cure for waiting, then the next step is to ask, what should I believe in? What should I act toward? What direction should my ship be sailing? And that brings us to the next great subject, the power of goals, and the meaning of a worthy ideal. Here's something most men never stop to question. They say they want success, they chase after it, they talk about it, and yet if you were to stop one of them on the street and ask, what is success? He would likely stammer, hesitate, maybe mention money, or recognition, or a certain position, and that's the root of the problem. If we cannot even define success, how can we ever expect to achieve it? A man without a definition is like a traveler who sets out without a destination. He may move, he may work, he may sweat and labor, but he will not arrive anywhere in particular because he never chose a place to arrive. And this is why millions of men spend their lives working harder than they ever imagined, yet find themselves restless, dissatisfied, even disillusioned when they finally get what they thought they wanted. They never stop to ask the simple but essential question, what is success? Now here is the answer, plain, simple, and tested. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Let me repeat that, because if you grasp it and hold on to it, it will change the way you see everything you do from this day forward. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. It is not a single event, it is not the applause of the crowd, it is not the final prize sitting on a shelf. It is the steady movement of a man or woman toward a goal they have chosen for themselves and deemed worthy of their finest effort. By that definition, the young student who is diligently studying for a degree he has set his heart upon is a success. The mother who has decided her great work is to raise her children with love and wisdom is a success. The craftsman who has chosen to perfect his art and labors each day to improve is a success. And the executive who guides his company with vision and integrity is a success. All are successful because they are realizing step by step their worthy ideal. Now notice the word worthy. That's where the power lies. Because not every goal, not every ideal is worthy. A man may set his sights on idleness, on destruction, on wasting his gifts, and if he progresses toward that, he is not successful. He is simply destroying himself. A worthy ideal is one that lifts you, stretches you, ennobles you. It is something that contributes not only to your life, but to the lives of others. It does not have to be grand in the eyes of the world, but it must be grand in your own heart. For one man, it may be a business empire. For another, it may be a farm well kept. For another, a classroom of children lit with knowledge. For another, a painting, a book, a song. The worthiness lies not in the size of the goal, but in the sincerity of the pursuit and in the benefit it brings. Now, let me show you the danger of misunderstanding this. A friend of mine, a successful attorney, once told me something that should shake every man awake. He had everything he thought he wanted: a fine practice, an excellent income, a beautiful home, a family he loved. He had worked for years to reach that point. But then, one day, he found himself strangely unhappy. The fun, the drive, the spark had disappeared. He was depressed, though he couldn't quite explain why. Do you see what happened? He had reached his goals, but he had not set new ones. He had no new mountain to climb, no new horizon to reach. Without a new worthy ideal, his life became stale. That is why success is not simply reaching something. It is always reaching toward something. The moment we stop moving toward, we begin to sink backward. So here's the stake for you and me. If we define success poorly as a pile of money, a title, a car in the driveway, we will one day reach it and find our hands empty. But if we define it properly as the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, then every day we are in motion toward it, we are successful already. This gives meaning to the present moment. It relieves the burden of waiting for some far-off day to feel like a success. And it guards us against the trap of arriving at a summit only to find there's nothing there. Now, think about it in your own life. Right now, at this very moment, what are you moving toward? Is it worthy of you? Is it big enough, important enough, meaningful enough to command your finest effort? If not, then perhaps that explains why you feel restless or unsatisfied. You may be working hard, but unless it's tied to a worthy ideal, the work will not feel like success. It will feel like mere labor. But choose a worthy goal, set your course, and even the smallest steps will carry the dignity of progress. And this is where our journey naturally leads next. If success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, then the next question is, how do we set that ideal before us clearly? How do we hold it in our mind so strongly that it guides our every thought and action? The answer lies in visualization and expectancy, the mental compass that steers us toward the life we choose. Here's something most men overlook entirely, yet it explains the great difference between the few who achieve and the many who fail. Every man lives by a picture in his mind, whether he knows it or not. That picture guides his steps, shapes his behavior, and little by little builds his future. If the picture is small, cloudy, uncertain, then his life will be small, cloudy, uncertain. If the picture is clear, bold, and filled with expectancy, then his life will rise to meet that vision. We become, in the simplest words I can give you, what we think about. Those 6 words, discovered after years of searching, stand as the strangest secret of all time. They are strange because so few take them seriously, yet they are as certain as the law of gravity. A man becomes what he thinks about. If he thinks about confusion, fear, and limitation, his life becomes a reflection of those things. If he thinks about goals, progress, growth, and contribution, his life becomes the unfolding of that vision. It cannot be otherwise. Now let's pause and see why this is true. Your mind is not just a storehouse for memories. It is a directing mechanism. It works ceaselessly to bring into reality the ideas that dominate it. When you hold a picture in your mind, your whole nervous system, your attitudes, your actions, even the people you attract, all begin to align with that image. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You make different choices. And because of that, the world reacts to you differently. Life, remember, is a mirror. It reflects not what you beg for, but who you are. And who you are is largely determined by what you expect and visualize each day. Let me give you a simple but powerful analogy. Picture a ship once more, but this time with a charted course and a compass set to the destination. The crew may not see the port yet. The horizon may be empty, but it doesn't matter. The compass is fixed, the wheel is steady, and day by day the ship moves closer to land. Now imagine another ship, just as strong, just as seaworthy, but with no chart, no compass, no fixed point of destination. It drifts. It wanders. It may be carried far by currents, but it ends up nowhere in particular. That's the difference between a man with clear visualization and expectancy and a man without it. One knows where he's going, and his life steers steadily toward it. The other has no picture, no fixed point, and he drifts among the 95% who fail. This truth struck me personally when I was 29 years old. I had been searching for years, reading philosophy, psychology, religion, history, every book I could lay my hands on, trying to understand why some men succeed and others fail. And then one morning it came to me like a flash of lightning. We become what we think about. There it was, 6 words that explained everything. And from that moment forward, I began to visualize and expect the life I wanted, not the one circumstances had handed me. I began to see myself not as a product of my surroundings, but as the captain of my own ship, guided by the picture I chose to hold in my mind, and from that decision, everything changed. But let's not leave this in the clouds. How do you use this truth in your own life? You begin by deciding exactly what you want, not vaguely, not half-heartedly, but clearly and specifically. Then you hold that picture in your mind as if it were already true. You visualize it each day, you see yourself already in possession of it, and you expect it. Expectancy is vital because the mind does not respond to wishes, it responds to beliefs. A wish is weak, a belief is strong. A wish says, it would be nice. A belief says, it will be. And when you expect the outcome, your whole being moves toward it. You think differently, you act differently, and others respond differently. It's as if the world, like iron to a magnet, is drawn to your conviction. Think of the great men of history, the inventors, the builders, the explorers. They saw in their minds long before the world saw in reality. The airplane existed first in the imagination of the Wright brothers. The light bulb burned first in the mind of Edison. Every skyscraper, every bridge, every work of art was first a picture held by someone who believed in it before a single stone was laid. That same law governs your life and mine. We will build in the outer world only what we have first built in the inner one. And here's the consequence of ignoring this. A man without visualization drifts. He goes to work each day because everyone else does. He waits for circumstances to hand him something good. He spends his life reacting instead of creating. And he ends up with the same result as the 95%. Mediocrity, dependence, frustration. But a man who visualizes and expects his worthy ideal lives differently. He wakes each day with direction. He sees obstacles not as permanent walls, but as temporary detours. He attracts opportunities others miss because his mind is tuned to look for them. He carries himself with the quiet confidence of someone who knows where he's going, even if the world doesn't see it yet. So let me ask you, what picture fills your mind each day? Do you dwell on fear, worry, and limitation? Or do you hold fast to the image of your goal, your ideal, your chosen future? Because whichever picture dominates, that is the one life will bring to pass. Remember always, we become what we think about. And when we visualize and expect, with faith and clarity, life bends to meet our vision. Now this brings us to the natural next step. If success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, and if visualization and expectancy are the compass that keep us on course, then the question becomes, how do we live daily with that ideal? Not as a distant dream, but as a present reality? How do we act as if it were already accomplished, shaping our lives in alignment with it every single day? That's what we'll explore next, as we turn to the subject of living with a worthy ideal. Now let's take this one step further, because it is not enough to define success, and it is not enough even to visualize it. We must live with it, walk with it, breathe with it every single day, as though it were already ours. Too many men make the mistake of treating their ideals like far-off dreams, like stars in the distance that they admire but never attempt to reach. They talk about someday. Someday they'll start the business, someday they'll write the book, someday they'll take the step. And because their worthy ideal remains locked in the future, it has no power in their present. But the man who truly succeeds treats his ideal not as a distant dream but as a living reality. He begins to conduct himself as though the goal were already accomplished. He shapes his habits, his speech, his posture, his daily actions around the picture he has chosen, and by doing so he brings that picture steadily into form. Think of it like Christmas morning. For weeks beforehand there is anticipation, excitement, preparation. The children think about the gifts, they can hardly sleep the night before, and then the morning comes. They tear open the wrapping paper, the gifts are revealed, and for a short while there is joy and laughter. But then, what happens? The thrill fades, the toys lose their shine, and the only way to keep that sense of joy alive is to look forward again to the next goal, the next horizon, the next celebration. Life is exactly the same. Once you reach one goal, the joy quickly fades if you do not set another. The only way to keep life rich and alive is to always live with a worthy ideal ahead of you, to always be moving towards something greater than what you have now. The man who has no new goal is like the child sitting in the middle of torn wrapping paper, staring at toys that no longer excite him. But the man who lives with a worthy ideal always has the thrill of anticipation in his heart. And here's the real key: when you live with your ideal daily, you stop postponing your identity. Too many people say, "When I achieve this, then I'll consider myself successful. When I get that, then I'll be worthy." But that is a dangerous lie, because worthiness does not come after the fact. Worthiness is chosen now. Success is lived now. You don't wait to feel like a writer until your book is published. You live as a writer by writing. You don't wait to feel like a leader until people follow you. You live as a leader by leading where you are. You don't wait to feel like a success until you have money in the bank. You live as a success by moving each day toward your worthy ideal. The attitude must come first. The actions must come first. And the results, in time, will follow like the harvest follows the planting. This is why so many men, even wealthy ones, confess to feeling empty. They confuse possessions with ideals. They accumulate money, houses, cars, status, and still feel restless because those things are not ideals, they are byproducts. A worthy ideal is not about what you possess, but about who you are becoming and what you are giving. If your daily life is aligned with a great purpose, if your actions match the picture you carry of yourself at your best, then you are already living in success, no matter what the balance sheet says. And if you are not aligned, if you are drifting, then no possession will fill the emptiness. Now you might be asking, but how do I know if my ideal is worthy? The answer is simple. Does it stretch you? Does it improve you? Does it contribute to the lives of others? If the answer is yes, then it is worthy. If it merely feeds your vanity, or keeps you small and safe, or drags you backward, then it is not worthy of you. Remember, you are a unique, unrepeatable human being with talents and gifts no one else has. To live beneath that, to waste it, is to live unworthy. But to rise toward it daily, even imperfectly, is to live with dignity and meaning. And so I urge you to bring your worthy ideal out of the realm of someday and into the realm of today. Write it down. Picture it clearly, and then live with it. Let it guide your choices. Let it shape your habits. Let it determine how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you spend your hours. Don't let a single day pass without giving some part of it to the pursuit of that ideal. And then, when you reach it, don't stop. Choose a new one. Because life itself is meant to be a continual unfolding, a continual reaching for more growth, more contribution, more fulfillment. So, now we see the picture coming together. Success is not waiting until some future moment. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, and it is lived every day through visualization, expectancy, and action. And as we live this way, there is one element above all that colors and shapes the entire experience. One force that can lift us to heights we never imagined or drag us down to depths we never wanted. That force is attitude. And that is where we turn next. Here's a truth that is so simple, so plain, that most men walk right past it without ever realizing its power. Life is a mirror. It reflects back to us not what we hope for, not what we beg for, not even what we think we deserve, but what we put out in attitude. And attitude, more than any other single factor, determines the quality of our lives. Stop and think about it. Two men may walk into the very same room. One comes in with a bright expectancy, with a spirit of interest, warmth, and goodwill. He smiles, he greets others, and what happens? The room warms to him. People smile back, conversations open, opportunities appear. The other man walks in with suspicion, with gloom, with a chip on his shoulder. He says little, he expects little, and what does the room reflect? Coldness, indifference, distance. The same room, the same people, yet two completely different experiences. Why? Because each man saw in the mirror only the reflection of the attitude he brought with him. Think of it in everyday life. A husband who comes home weary and short-tempered finds a cold dinner, a strained silence, children who scatter to avoid his temper. The same husband on another night comes home with a cheerful word, a spirit of gratitude, a warm embrace, and suddenly the dinner tastes better, the conversation flows, the home is filled with laughter. Did the house change? Did the family change? Or was it the mirror reflecting the attitude of the man who walked in the door? Our surroundings, our environment, our very fortunes in life are constantly echoing back to us the spirit we send out. Emerson put it well when he said, "A man's fortunes are simply the fruit of his character. The world outside is nothing more than a merciless reflection of the world inside." I once knew a couple who retired to Florida, believing they would finally find the happiness that had eluded them. They bought a fine house, close to the water, with every comfort they could afford. But within months they were packing to leave. Why? Because the wife said she hadn't been accepted by the community. The other women hadn't invited her to luncheons, hadn't opened their doors, hadn't made her feel welcome. What she didn't realize was that she had never opened herself first. She had stayed shut in, waiting for them to come to her. And in waiting, she projected indifference. The community mirrored her attitude. They assumed she wanted to be left alone, and so she was. They could only reflect what she gave them. And so she left, believing she had chosen the wrong place, never realizing that she had carried the wrong attitude. That's the way life works. It is always reflecting, always answering, always returning to us what we send out. Now, some may resist this. They say, "But my circumstances are hard, my environment is unfriendly, my boss is cruel, my neighbors are cold. Surely my attitude is not to blame." But look again. Life is not so much what happens to us as it is how we respond. If we go on waiting for the world to be friendly before we are friendly, if we go on waiting for success before we are confident, if we go on waiting for kindness before we show kindness, we will wait forever. The cold stove will never heat the room until someone puts in the fuel. Life waits for us to act first, and when we do, the reflection changes. It is cause and effect, as certain as the rising of the Sunday. This is why some men seem to move from one success to another, while others never get ahead. It is not luck, it is not fate, it is attitude. The man with a great attitude finds opportunities opening not because the world is different for him, but because he is different for the world. He expects good, and so he sees good. He looks for ways to serve, and so he is invited to serve. He believes in growth, and so he grows. Meanwhile, the man with a poor attitude confirms his own fears. He expects little, and so he sees little. He complains of lack, and so lack multiplies in his life. He dwells on obstacles, and obstacles expand before him. Each lives in a world of his own making, fashioned in the mirror of his own spirit. And so we must pause and ask ourselves, honestly, what is my prevailing attitude? Is it cheerful, expectant, and confident, or is it doubtful, gloomy, and suspicious? For whatever it is, life will reflect it faithfully. And the moment we change our attitude, the reflection begins to change as well. A poor man who decides to expect wealth in the form of service and contribution will soon find opportunities he never saw before. A lonely man who decides to radiate friendliness will soon find himself surrounded by friends. A discouraged man who decides to act with courage will soon find courage reflected back to him in circumstances. The mirror is merciless, but it is also generous. It gives us exactly what we give it. So here's the challenge. From this day forward, test this truth in your own life. Make the decision to hold a great attitude, no matter the circumstances, and watch the reflection. Carry yourself as a man who is glad to be alive, who expects good, who sees possibilities, and the mirror of life will begin to brighten. Do it for a week, and you'll notice a difference. Do it for a month, and others will notice a difference. Do it for a year, and your whole life will be transformed. For the great law is this: life is a mirror, and it reflects back to us, with unfailing accuracy, the attitude we present to it. And that brings us to the next great secret. If life is always mirroring our attitude, then we must learn not only to hold a good one occasionally, but to build it into the very habit of our being. We must learn how to cultivate gratitude and expectancy until they become second nature, until they are as natural to us as breathing. That's what we'll uncover next, as we turn to the practice of building the habit of expectancy. If life is a mirror, then the wisest course is to decide once and for all what reflection we want to see, and then to carry ourselves in such a way that the mirror has no choice but to give it back. This is why expectancy is one of the greatest forces in human life. For what we expect with confidence, we tend to receive. Expectancy is not wishful thinking. It is not idle daydreaming. It is a settled conviction that says, "This is where I am going. This is who I am becoming. This is the kind of life I will live." When a man truly expects something, he begins to move toward it, and it begins to move toward him. His words change, his posture changes, his daily conduct changes, and slowly but surely the conditions of his life begin to match the picture he has been holding in his heart. But here is the important part. Expectancy cannot be a fleeting thought that visits once in a while. It must become a habit, woven into the very fabric of our daily lives. Just as we brush our teeth or tie our shoes without a second thought, we must train ourselves to expect the best automatically until it becomes the natural atmosphere of our minds. And this habit of expectancy is built through deliberate practice. We cannot wait for the world to give us reasons to expect good, for the world merely reflects. We must generate the expectancy first. We must rise each morning with gratitude, saying, "I am alive," and that alone is proof that I am meant for growth. We must remind ourselves, again and again, that what we put out, we draw back, and if we want to draw back abundance, opportunity, and joy, then we must radiate confidence, generosity, and goodwill. I once heard a story of a man who kept a small card by his bathroom mirror. On it he had written just one word: attitude. Each morning, as he shaved, he was reminded to set his attitude for the day. And in time, this small reminder reshaped his whole life. Because every day he deliberately chose to expect good, to act with gratitude, to carry himself as a man who belonged to the 5% who succeed. And life, faithful to its law, returned to him what he expected. That is the power of habit. That is the power of a single word kept before the mind until it becomes second nature. Now consider the opposite. Think of the man who wakes up already dreading the day, already convinced that nothing good will happen. He mutters complaints, he drags himself through his routine, he greets others with indifference or irritation, and what does life reflect? More of the same. The day brings frustration, the people around him respond with coldness, and he says, "See, I knew it would be a bad day." He doesn't realize that his expectation wrote the script. He set the tone, and the mirror returned it to him line by line. That's why we say that expectancy is destiny. Because whether positive or negative, what you expect, you are almost certain to receive. And here's something to remember. You cannot fool the mirror. You can't paste a smile on your face while inside you are filled with bitterness and think life will reflect joy. No, the reflection will be just as hollow as the spirit behind it. To build the habit of expectancy, you must begin on the inside. You must fill your mind with gratitude, with visions of growth, with reminders of your worthy ideal, until expectancy is no longer a performance but a genuine state of being. Gratitude is the soil, and expectancy is the seed. Together they form the habit that draws abundance like a magnet. Let me give you a simple analogy. Picture a cold stove in the middle of a cabin. A man sits before it, shivering, saying, "Give me heat, and then I'll put in the wood." But we know better. The stove will never give heat until he puts in the fuel first. Life is exactly the same. We say to life, "Give me success, and then I'll be confident. Give me opportunity, and then I'll be expectant. Give me happiness, and then I'll be grateful. And life answers, put in the fuel first, carry the attitude first, expect the best first. Then and only then will you feel the warmth. Expectancy is the wood we place in the stove. Gratitude is the match that sets it alight. Together they create the fire of life. So ask yourself, what is the habit of your heart? Do you expect little and receive little? Do you expect difficulty and find difficulty at every turn? Or do you expect growth, progress, opportunity? Because you can choose, you can train yourself, and once the habit is built, it carries you without effort. A man who has trained himself to expect good wakes each morning, already leaning into opportunity, already alert to possibility, already confident that life is his ally, and the mirror does not disappoint him. Now, let's tie this back to the larger picture. We have seen that most fail because they wait. We have seen that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. We have seen that visualization and expectancy form the compass of achievement, and now we see that life reflects the attitude we carry. The natural next step is discipline, the decision to put these truths to the test, to practice them daily until they become as sure and unshakable as the rising of the Sunday. And that is what we will turn to next, the discipline of the 30-day test, and the persistence that carries a man through when feelings fade and obstacles rise. Now we come to a point where all of this must move from theory to practice, because ideas, no matter how powerful, are wasted unless we put them to work in our own lives. It is one thing to nod in agreement, to say, yes, I see how attitude, expectancy, and worthy ideals shape success. But it is another thing entirely to test it, to try it, to stake 30 days of your life on the principle and see what happens. And that is exactly what I invite you to do. Take the 30-day test. For 30 days, discipline your mind to think only of what you want, never of what you fear. For 30 days, guard your thoughts as carefully as a watchman guards the gates of a city. For 30 days, hold before you the picture of your worthy ideal, live as if it were already true, and refuse to allow any negative, doubtful, or fearful thought to take root. It may sound simple. In fact, it is simple, but don't mistake simplicity for ease. This is one of the hardest tests you will ever take, because your own mind will resist you every step of the way. Think of your mind as a garden. The soil does not care what is planted. It will grow weeds just as easily as flowers. It will return thorns just as faithfully as roses. Whatever seeds are dropped into it, the soil nourishes and multiplies. Most men leave their garden unattended. They allow weeds of fear, doubt, envy, and anger to scatter freely. They pay no attention until one day they look around and see a tangle of frustration choking out their lives. But the man who succeeds takes responsibility for the garden. He decides what will grow. He plants carefully, he waters daily, and he uproots the weeds the moment they appear. That is what the 30-day test is all about. It is about deciding once and for all that only the seeds of success will be planted in the soil of your mind. Now, here is why 30 days is so important. A single day of positive thinking can feel encouraging, but it is too easy to slip back into old patterns. A week of focus can build momentum, but habits are stubborn, and the weeds will creep back in if you are not vigilant. But 30 days is long enough to begin rewiring your thinking, long enough to prove to yourself that life responds to the picture you hold, long enough to feel the first stirrings of the harvest. During those 30 days, you will meet resistance. Old doubts will rise up. Fear will whisper, "This is foolish. Nothing is changing." Worry will knock on the door, demanding to be let in. But if you hold firm, if you persist, you will discover something astonishing. The old weeds begin to wither, and new growth begins to take hold. Ideas come to you, opportunities appear. People respond differently. Your own confidence grows. And by the end of 30 days, you will never again be able to say, "I didn't know this worked," because you will have proved it in your own life. But let me be clear, this test requires absolute commitment. It is not a casual experiment to be taken half-heartedly. You must decide, with the seriousness of a man setting out on a long journey, that for 30 days nothing will shake your faith. You will think only of what you want. You will act only as if success were already yours. You will live only with gratitude and expectancy. And if a negative thought enters, and it will, you will not dwell on it, you will not water it, you will let it go and immediately replace it with the image of your worthy ideal. Day after day, you will discipline yourself to hold to the vision, and each morning you will begin again with a fresh resolve. Some will say, "But surely a man cannot control every thought." And they are right. Thoughts will come unbidden, like birds flying overhead, but you control whether they build a nest in your mind. You control whether you dwell upon them, feed them, and let them multiply. The discipline of the 30-day test is not to prevent a single negative thought from ever entering, but to prevent it from staying. You recognize it, you release it, and you return to your vision. That is the way discipline works. That is the way the garden is kept. Now let's set the stakes plainly. Fail this test, and you will drift back into the 95% who live by fear and conformity. You will find your mind again filled with weeds, and your life again reflecting them. But pass this test, and you will know beyond a shadow of doubt that you hold in your hands the key to success. You will have experienced the power of your own mind. You will have proved that what you think about, you become. And once you know that, once you have felt it working, you can never again be the same. You will be forever changed, because you will no longer live as a victim of chance or circumstance. You will know that you are the captain of your ship, the gardener of your field, the master of your fate. So take the challenge. Set aside 30 days. Write your goal clearly. Fix it in your mind. And then, day by day, thought by thought, hold to it. Live as though it were already accomplished. Think only of what you want, never of what you fear. And when the 30 days are over, look back and see what has happened. I promise you, if you do this faithfully, your life will not be the same. And yet even this is not the end. For once you have taken the test, once you have felt the first victories of discipline, the question becomes, will you persist? Will you keep going when the feelings fade, when results are slow, when the novelty wears off? Because the truth is, success does not come in bursts of enthusiasm. It comes to the man who persists beyond feelings, who continues when others quit, who refuses to give up no matter how long it takes. And that is where we must go next, as we look at the power of persistence beyond feelings. Now, if discipline is the gate through which we must pass, persistence is the road we must walk. And it is a long road. It stretches beyond the thrill of beginnings, beyond the rush of fresh enthusiasm, beyond the first signs of progress. It stretches into those silent days, when nothing seems at a joy's to be happening, when the results appear distant, when the weeds threaten to return, when the dream feels heavy and the world seems indifferent. This is where most men fall away. They begin with fire in their eyes, but when the novelty fades and the road becomes ordinary, they slow down, they drift, and soon they stop altogether. And yet this is the very place where success is separated from failure, for success is not determined by talent or luck or bursts of inspiration. Success belongs to the man who persists, who refuses to stop, who continues day after day, long after the feeling has faded. Think about the farmer once more. He plants his seeds in the spring. He waters them, he tends them, but for weeks the ground looks barren. Nothing pushes through the soil. Day after day he works, knowing that something invisible is happening beneath the surface. The roots are forming, the life is stirring, but his eyes see only empty earth. A foolish man would give up, declaring it useless. But the wise farmer persists because he understands the law. He knows the harvest will come in its season, so he continues, not because he feels like it, but because he has decided to. And sure enough, the first shoots appear, the plants grow tall, and the harvest comes in abundance. So it is with every worthy goal. There will be a long stretch when nothing seems to happen, when your efforts appear wasted, and in that stretch your feelings will abandon you. But if you persist, the roots of your success are quietly spreading. preparing to break through in their season. The problem with most men is that they mistake silence for failure. They believe if they cannot see results quickly, then nothing is working, and so they quit just before the breakthrough. They abandon the field just before the harvest. They stop digging just before they strike the vein of gold, and then they say, "It wasn't meant to be." But the truth is, it was meant to be if only they had persisted. Success does not come to the man who works hard for a week. It comes to the man who works steadily for years, refining, adjusting, holding firm to his vision when others laugh, when others doubt, when others walk away. Let me share with you the story of Russell Conwell, who told over 6,000 times the lecture called Acres of Diamonds. In it, he told the story of a farmer who sold his land to search for riches elsewhere, only to die penniless, while the man who bought his farm discovered that it sat atop one of the richest diamond mines on the continent. The moral is clear. Riches are often right under our feet, but we must persist in digging. Too many men sell their farm, they abandon the very work that could yield their fortune because it has grown dull, because it feels ordinary, because they think the answer lies somewhere else. But the truth is, success usually comes not from a change of fields, but from a persistence of effort. The gold lies deeper than we thought, and it yields only to the man who keeps digging long after the others have gone home. Now here is the test of greatness. Will you act when you do not feel like acting? Will you persist when progress is invisible? Will you continue when the applause has faded and the crowd has gone home? Anyone can act when the sun is shining, when the results are visible, when the feelings are high. But only the man who has made persistence his creed can act when the night is dark, when the field looks barren, when the heart feels weary. And that man, by sheer endurance, eventually outlasts all competition. The world calls him lucky, but luck has nothing to do with it. He simply stayed the course. And let me tell you why this matters. Because if you rely on feelings, you will never finish anything of worth. Feelings are like the wind, they shift, they rise and fall, they cannot be trusted. One day you feel eager, the next you feel dull. One day you feel inspired, the next you feel discouraged. If you build your life on feelings, you will be tossed like a ship without anchor. But if you build your life on persistence, on steady action, guided by your worthy ideal, then you will reach the port no matter how the winds blow. Persistence is stronger than feelings because it is born of decision. So let me give you the rule that has guided me. Never quit. Decide now that you will not stop until the goal is reached. When you are tempted to quit, remember the farmer who would not abandon his field, the miner who would not stop digging, the speaker who gave the same lecture thousands of times until he built a university with the proceeds. Remember that every great success was built on years of steady, unglamorous persistence. And remember that each day you continue, you are one day closer to the breakthrough. Now we see why discipline and persistence must work together. Discipline begins the habit. Persistence carries it forward beyond feelings, beyond fatigue, beyond the long, silent stretch of apparent nothingness. And together they produce success where others see only failure. And yet, even persistence is not the final step. For once we have disciplined our minds and persisted in our efforts, we must ask ourselves, what is it all for? Why are we acting as if success is already ours? The answer is greater than personal gain, greater than private ambition. The answer lies in service, in contribution, in living as if heaven itself had sent us here with a purpose larger than ourselves. And that is where we turn next. Now we arrive at the deepest truth of all, the truth that gives meaning to every principle we've spoken about, the truth that lifts our ideals above mere ambition and turns them into a calling. For if it is true that we become what we think about, if it is true that attitude reflects back to us the very shape of our lives, if it is true that discipline and persistence carry us to our goals, then we must ask a greater question. Why? Why should we act as if success were already ours? Why should we carry ourselves with confidence and purpose when the world may not yet see it? The answer is simple, but it is profound. Because life itself is a trust, and each of us has been sent here with a purpose. To act as if success is already yours is to live as if heaven itself had sent you, and it did. You are not here by accident. You are not here to drift. You are not here merely to consume, to take, to survive. You are here to serve, to create, to contribute, to add something to the world that only you can add. Think about the difference this makes. A man who pursues success only for himself may reach a measure of wealth, but he remains restless, unsatisfied, forever chasing more, because the self is too small a vessel to contain a great life. But the man who lives as if heaven sent him, who says, "My life is not my own, my gifts are to be used, my days are to be given in service," that man finds a fulfillment that money can never buy. His work becomes larger than himself, his vision stretches beyond his own comfort, and because he gives, life gives back to him in multiplied measure. The law is always the same: as we sow, so shall we reap. And the richest harvest is always reserved for the man who plants in service to others. I saw this truth lived out in business. Years ago, when I was leading a company of men, I discovered that the surest way to grow was not to demand more sales, more profits, more results for myself, but to inspire my men, to lift them, to serve them, to help them see their own worth. And as they grew, the company grew. As they succeeded, I succeeded. Service became the multiplier, the great secret of prosperity. And it will be the same in your life, whether your field is business, teaching, art, or family. If you live as if heaven sent you, you will carry a sense of responsibility and purpose that others cannot help but notice. You will become magnetic, not because you chase recognition, but because you radiate contribution. Now, here is the danger. Most men never rise to this level. They live only for themselves. They measure their success in possessions, in applause, in status. And even if they achieve it, they find it hollow, because it was never tied to service. But the man who acts as if heaven sent him cannot help but give more than he takes, cannot help but lift others as he climbs, cannot help but pour himself out like a river that grows stronger the more it flows. He does not live as a beggar asking life for favors. He lives as a steward entrusted with gifts, determined to use them fully before his time is done. So I ask you, how would you live if you truly believed heaven had sent you here with a purpose? Would you waste your hours in doubt and worry? Would you drift in conformity with the 95% who never realize their potential? Or would you rise each day with gratitude, expecting the best, carrying yourself as one who belongs to the small company of men who change the world? Would you treat every person you meet as though they mattered deeply because they do? Would you give your work your finest effort because it deserves it? Would you keep going when others quit because persistence is the proof of calling? That is what it means to live as if heaven sent you. And here is the promise. If you live this way, life will begin to open its treasures to you. You will find opportunities where before there were none. You will find doors swinging open, people eager to join your cause, circumstances aligning in ways you could not have planned. Why? Because the world responds to purpose. It cannot resist the man who knows why he is here and lives accordingly. To act as if success is already yours is to live as if heaven had sent you, and that attitude, that spirit, that conviction will draw success to you as surely as the magnet draws iron filings. So let us end where we began. Most men wait, they drift, they conform, and they fail. But a few decide. They choose a worthy ideal. They visualize it, they expect it, they live with it daily. They guard their minds, they persist beyond feelings, and above all, they act as though heaven itself had entrusted them with a purpose. Those few change the course of their lives, and in doing so, they change the world. You can be one of them. The choice is yours. And so we have walked together through these great ideas, not as theory to be admired, but as laws to be lived. We have seen that most men fail because they wait, because they conform, because they look around at the crowd and assume the crowd must know where it's going. But the truth is plain. The crowd is drifting. The 95% are ships without captains, gardens without caretakers, lives without direction, and if we follow them, we will end where they end, in frustration, in dependence, in regret. But the few who succeed, the 5%, live differently. They begin by deciding. They choose a worthy ideal, and they define success not as luck, not as possessions, not as applause, but as the progressive realization of that ideal. They see clearly where they are going, and they begin to move toward it. We have seen that visualization and expectancy are the compass of this journey. What a man thinks about, he becomes. Hold before you the picture of what you want, expect it, believe in it, and life will bend itself to match your vision. But let that picture be worthy. Let it stretch you, improve you, lift you, and serve others, for only then will it satisfy your soul. We have seen that life is a mirror, reflecting back the attitude we carry. Approach the world with suspicion, and the world will return suspicion. Approach it with gratitude and confidence, and the world will open its doors. Attitude is not decoration, it is destiny. And then comes the discipline. For 30 days, think only of what you want. Refuse to give harbor to fear, doubt, or limitation. Guard your mind as a watchman guards the gate, and you will prove to yourself the power of thought. And after those 30 days, persist. Keep going when the feelings fade, when results are slow, when the road seems endless. For persistence is the dividing line between the man who merely tries and the man who truly achieves. Anyone can begin. Few continue. But those who continue cannot fail, for the law is faithful. As you sow, so shall you reap. And above all, we have seen that success is larger than self. To act as if success is already yours is not arrogance. It is responsibility. It is living as though heaven itself had entrusted you with gifts, talents, and time, and expects you to use them. You are here to serve, to contribute, to create, to add something to the world that no one else can. And when you live this way, prosperity follows as a byproduct, not as a goal. Recognition comes not because you chase it, but because you give. And fulfillment is found not in what you keep, but in what you pour out. So let me affirm this truth for you one more time. You become what you think about. If you think in fear, you will live in fear. If you think in limitation, you will live in limitation. But if you think in faith, in courage, and expectancy, if you live each day as though your worthy ideal were already yours, then success cannot help but follow. Think greatly, act boldly, persist faithfully, and live as if heaven itself sent you with a purpose, because it did. Now, before we part, let me leave you with this invitation. If you want to know the exact law that makes men succeed while others fail, if you want to hear it explained in the clearest terms ever given, then I invite you to watch my message called The Strangest Secret. It is the foundation of everything we've spoken about today. Click here and let us continue the journey together.